Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Gunners Guild. It's been a while. Today I'm going to cover some meta sets for the light bowgun. Alright, so I haven't covered much of the light bowgun because I didn't really use it much, and I was hoping Mai would cover them since he's a much better light bowgun player than I am. However, with the time attack rule changes, light bowgun has essentially become the better of the two bowguns if you exclude cluster heavy bowgun. So I've been using it a lot more. We've had no change to the ammo types since the slicing nerf, so pretty much everything else has remained the same. However, it's been a good amount of time so people have more decorations, myself included, and can optimize sets better. So here's a rundown on some current light bowgun sets. To start, this isn't going to matter to most people, but the time attack rules did get updated, so there are a lot of things that we can't use now in speedruns. Because of this, my sets have changed a fair amount. So when I cover sets and changes, I'll also go over time attack and non-time attack versions of each. The main difference though is that since we can't run affinity booster, we basically swap out the attack decorations for critical eye decorations, since we need to make up for the loss of affinity. Anyway, I'll try to make this quick. The sets won't be covered as in-depth as before because I'm trying to compile them all into one video. Keep in mind that these sets are going to be endgame sets, meaning that all decorations are available. If you don't have some of the decorations, it won't kill the builds, but you may have to shuffle some armor pieces around to make up for it. Losing 9 raw because you don't have some attack decorations doesn't invalidate the build. So if you're still going to complain about not having a decoration, well, I don't really care. So if you still haven't got into gunning and wanted to give it a try, I still recommend the Karma Rapid Fire Normal 2 light bowgun. It still works decently well. Now, normal 2 shots have further distance and spread, so it's safer to play, but it's definitely not as strong. Here's an updated Karma set that I use. It uses Attack Boost 4 for the 5% affinity, Critical Boost 3, Weakness Exploit 3, Peak Performance 3, Ammo Up 2, Normal Up, and Special Ammo Boost 1. If you augment Karma with affinity, you'll be sitting at 95% crit rate, and you won't lose any crits due to rolling. We don't use Xeno Jiva on normal shot because it's got a decent clip size and good reload speeds, and we really need to focus on bringing the damage up. We still augment for 2 close range mods, but feel free to use another mod to reduce the reload speed or recoil of a secondary ammo type if you wish. You can also switch out one of the critical boost decorations for ballistics and get some more range at the cost of negating your close range mods. Playstyle is up to you though, so feel free. The Cataclysm's trigger is still a fine alternative, especially if you're not doing time attack runs, since you can use affinity booster. It's got much higher raw than Karma and can still reach 100% affinity with the booster in effect, or by using maximum might. I'd say Cataclysm's trigger edges out Karma if you run peak performance with affinity booster and drop some crit, but that's pretty much it. Otherwise they're exactly the same. Karma you get hit and lose some raw, or Cataclysm's trigger you roll and lose affinity. There's not much of a difference. The base raw is going to end up being about the same anyway. Moving on to Pierce. Pierce is in a pretty bad spot right now, since projectiles travel very slowly. It works pretty well on Nergigante, Bagel Juice, and Vaal, but I probably wouldn't recommend it for anything else. It's still usable for sure, it's just lacking in performance. But if you really want to sit far back and dump shots into a monster, this is probably your thing. For a Pierce setup, the Great Bowgun is the best option, since it can both shoot Pierce 1s and Pierce 2, and use non-elemental boost. You have some options with the bowgun mods here. You can run 2 recoil and a close range mod to let your Pierce 1 have recoil 1, letting you shoot it a little bit faster. Or you can use 1 recoil, 1 reload, and 1 close range mod to be able to use Pierce 1 and 2 effectively. The main difference with Pierce 1 and 2 is that the damage ticks occur in a smaller window, so it can be used on some smaller areas. However, the clip size is going to hurt its comparable DPS. And then you can also go 1 recoil, 1 close range, and 1 long range mod. This will let you use Pierce 1 with added damage at most ranges. There's a tiny window where you'll be too far to get close range bonus and not far enough to get the long range bonus, but it's pretty easy to play around that once you know your distance. We use close range mods because Pierce pretty much has to run ballistics to be effective. It will extend your critical distance to be from point blank to very far range, and it's easy to stay closer to a monster than it is to stay at longer range. Go ahead and augment this for affinity per the norm. Like most bowgun sets, this is pretty similar to the normal 2 rapid fire setup. The only main difference is that we have to run ballistics to use Pierce at almost any distance. We sacrifice a rank of 2 shot up for the elementalist decoration, but that's about it. You can also move some stuff around and drop the 2 ranks of critical boost and get attack 7 and a rank of maximum might for more consistent damage since you're going to have more affinity. You only lose like 1 damage per hit but gain like 10% affinity, so it's probably better to take this if you're not running affinity booster. Moving on to spread 2. Juria light bowgun is still a great step into spread gunning. The main difference here is that you're going to have to be really close to the monster. Essentially, you're going to touch your gun to their face. It's nowhere near as safe as normal shot or pierce shot, but it is much stronger. The Juria light bowgun uses spread 2s obviously, but can also rapid fire water shot, can use sleep 1, sleep 2s, and paralysis 1s. It's a very good bowgun. The main draw to the spread 2 is that it has normal reload speeds, which lets you move and reload, whereas spread 3 light bowguns all have slow reload speeds, which require them to be stationary. So if you don't like the stationary reload speeds of spread 3 light bowguns, this is a fine alternative. It's really not that much weaker, especially once you start considering the Xeno set proc. Anything can happen. Now I augmented my Juria light bowgun for affinity and a level 2 slot, which is really no better than doing 3 affinity augments or 1 affinity and 2 attack augments. It just lets me be a little bit more flexible when putting in decorations. But most of the time I fill the slot with maximum might or peak performance or a critical boost. So feel free to use whatever. We've changed the set here to squeeze in 3 pieces of the Xeno set, which grants us the Ammo Saver skill. While not entirely necessary, the chance for a huge clip can boost your DPS on a downed monster. Otherwise it doesn't really matter because with the monster still moving, then you can just reload while you're dodging attacks. For spread 3 light bowguns, you have 2 options, Gogoleth's Wail or Devil's Madness. The main difference of the two is just affinity versus raw. Both bowguns can load pretty much the same ammo effectively, although Gogoleth's can also use para 1 shots. Both have the access to dragon shots which can be utilized on certain monsters, but it's not a huge deal. I augment affinity on both. The last slot for the Joe's light bowgun can be a slot, affinity, raw, it doesn't really matter. The sets are pretty much identical to the spread 2 builds, but you can tweak them around a little bit. For Gogoleth's Wail, we can run 95% affinity with maximum might and land 24 damage on spread shots consistently on the stump. It's great for time attack without any affinity booster. Or we can trade out the maximum might for critical boost, so you're just sacrificing 20% affinity for 3 more damage on critical hits. Now it seems small, but 3 damage per hit on 7 hits for a spread 3 is still 21 damage per hit, which is still 63 damage per clip without a Xeno proc. It's not too shabby. Ultimately, it's up to you. Devil's Madness plays by the same rules. You're trading consistency for crit damage. Using the critical boost setup, you're looking at 45% affinity on weak zones and hitting for about 29. Or you can trade out the crit boost window and run maximum might and be hitting for 27s with a little more consistency. Obviously, if you're going to be running affinity booster, then the critical boost setups are going to outperform the critical ones, since you'll overcap on affinity anyway. Now playstyle wise, all spread light bowguns pretty much have to play at point blank. You just need to be very careful when running spread 3s since you have to stop and reload. This is why the Xeno set bonus is so important. The less often you can reload, the safer you're going to be. And also, reloading wastes a lot of time, so prolonging that helps you with your DPS. That's all I really have for effective builds that I can think of. Some other ones like Elemental Rapid Fire can work, I just personally don't like them. It seems normal is essentially the same thing, but Elemental does have longer range. Stickies and slicing are good utility ammo if you can use it, but it's nothing to focus on. Now I'm not saying these are trash builds, but they certainly don't perform as well as others. Now Elemental have some niche spots where they're pretty good, like using Rapid Fire on Vaal, or Rapid Fire Water on Uragon. And Stickies and Slicing can still trivialize Kirin. So if you want to run those, go for it, it's up to you. I just don't personally like them. So that's all I have on current light bowgun setups for now anyway. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.